All right, I now call this meeting of the City Council to order. Please note that pursuant to Chapter 20 of the Acts of 2021, this meeting of the City Council will be conducted via remote participation. We will post an audio recording, audio-video recording, transcript, or other comprehensive records of these proceedings as soon as possible after the meeting on the City of Somerville website and local cable access government channels. Now please rise for the prayer and pledge of allegiance.
God, grant this City Council the serenity to accept the things that cannot be changed, the courage to change the things that can be changed, and the wisdom to know the difference. Let us now join in a salute to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please be seated, and Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
This is roll call to establish a quorum. Councilor Niedergang.
Here.
Councilor White.
Here.
Councilor Valentine.
Present.
Councilor Ewan-Campen.
Here.
Councilor Davis.
Here.
Councilor Strezzo.
Here.
Councilor Klingon.
Present.
Councilor Mba.
Present.
Councilor Scott.
Present.
Councilor Rossetti.
Present.
And Councilor McLaughlin.
Here.
All 11 councilors are present. We have a quorum.
Do we have any moments of silence?
I do, Mr. President.
Councilor Klingon?
Yes, sir. Mr. President, I ask that we tonight remember Mr. James Jimmy K. O'Brien of Somerville. He passed away during the break on July 17th. He was 66. He was born in Cambridge, the son of the late Mary Mountain and Francis O'Brien. His beloved husband for 43 years to Iona Hughes O'Brien, all members of Ward 4, as well as is the devoted father to Eric O'Brien of the Somerville Police Department. He also resides in Ward 4 with his wife Emily, his other son, Jimmy's other son Dallas O'Brien, his girlfriend Jasmine Wallace, all of Somerville, loving pops to his 6-month-old grandson Emric O'Brien and his grandpa Kopi, dear brother of Lewis Maxwell and her husband Chuck of Tewksbury, cherished uncle of Chucky Maxwell and wife Nikki, son-in-law to George and Suzanne Hughes, and brother-in-law of Joe Markeith, Kenny Hughes. Jimmy was an owner distributor of Arnold Bread for many years. He enjoyed following all things sports, especially the Dallas Cowboys, Boston Red Sox, and above all, he was devoted to his family, which that I can attest to. What a great family. He will surely be missed by all. And there was a service that has already passed, seen as though it was a while back, but my thoughts and prayers are with the Hughes family and the O'Brien family this evening. Thank you. And Mr. President, I also want to make sure that we remember as we're coming up upon International Overdose Awareness Day, August 31st, which the city will be recognizing once again, thanks to the efforts of the community and a few of us counselors through the years. And I just want to say that I want to remember all of those lives lost, mainly due, the overdose deaths are 100% preventable, and that's the tragedy of this. And I want to remember those lives. Thank you.
Councilor Valentine would like to sign on. Councilor White.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd like a moment to remember Salvatore DiDomenico. He actually passed during the coronavirus last year, but they're having a celebration of his life on August 28th. Sal was actually a stalwart of the Italian community in East Cambridge where he lived, but it also carried over into Ward 2, the area basically that went from Union Square all the way down to where the Target is. It was largely it was an Italian-American community of folks who were from Gaeta, Italy. And one of the celebrations that they brought with them from Gaeta is the Feast of Cosmas and Damian. They're the patron saints. And I think 94 years, I think that missed during the coronavirus crisis, there's been a parade. And then there's also basically a celebration, a festival, similar like the North End Feast that we see in Boston, only we have it in East Cambridge, right across the line. It's behind the Twin City Mall. And Sal was basically the glue that kept that tradition, that celebration together. And in addition to his assistance there, he also was a member of the and president of the Dante Alighieri Society, and was involved in a number of activities in the city of Cambridge. He's the father to State Senator Sal DiDomenico, who for a short period of time represented a little bit of Somerville. So I thought it was appropriate for us to remember Sal, this evening for his contributions to the Italian-American immigrant community in Somerville through the course of his 82 years of life. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor White. I'd like to sign on to that as well. Are there any further moments of silence? Councilor Scott would like to sign on. Any further moments of silence? Seeing none, please rise for a moment of silence. Please be seated. Madam Clerk, next item.
Item number 3 is approval of the minutes of the regular meetings of June 24th, 2021 and July 8th, 2021.
No discussion. This item will be laid on the table for approval. And before we move forward, there's a few requests for taking items out of order. I would like to take item number 8 out of order, which is the appointment of Joan Liu to the Traffic Board. Councilor Ballantyne would like to take item 49 out of order, which is approval for a sewer line. And then the city requested items 48, 59, and 60, which all have to do with voting and early voting out of order. Are there any other requests for taking items out of order? Seeing none, we'll take these items up after public hearings.
Okay, that brings us to item number 4, which is a grant of location submitted by Eversource to install 99 feet of conduit in Summer Street from utility pole 325/28 to a point of pickup at 162 Summer Street.
All right, I now declare this public hearing open. Is there anyone in the audience who wishes to speak on this item? I see Jackie Duffy. Jackie, you're unmuted on my side.
Hi, can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Hi, how are you? We would like to install 99 feet of conduit in Summer Street from the utility pole 325/28 to 162 Summer Street.
Okay. Is there anyone else in the audience who wishes to speak on this item? Please use a little hand icon and I'll call on you. Going once, going twice. Seeing no further comment, I now declare this public hearing closed. Is there anyone on the council who wishes to speak? Councilor Rossetti.
Mr. President, thank you. To you, Mr. President, my colleagues, and to Ms. Duffy, I have concern with Eversource this evening. There's, as we all know, a very important project happening in our city, which is the renovation project of Somerville High School. And as different phases are coming to culmination and the school is getting ready to open, today was a very important day. There's background noise, sir. I don't know who that is, but...
Everyone, please mute yourself if you're not speaking.
I'm back on, I'm sorry.
Sounds like Jackie got out. Go ahead, Councilor Rossetti.
Okay. I hope that Ms. Duffy heard what I just said.
Sorry,
but,
sorry, real quick. Jackie, can you mute yourself when you're not speaking? Because we're getting an echo. All right, sorry, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. President, through you. So with the opening soon of Somerville High School, the brand new, beautiful building following renovation, Eversource was supposed to show today to remove transformer that assisted the modulars when the modulars were up in front of the building early on in the project. And the modulars, as we know, have been removed, but the very large transformer box is still there, which is impacting Suffolk's ability to complete the paving and the ADA accessibility and the safety for the school to open smooth. Today was the day Eversource was supposed to finally appear and remove that, and they didn't. And they said, the contact person of Eversource is Tracy McDevitt. And in speaking with Director Rich Raish today, he and the team with Suffolk and with our architectural team are very concerned because this has a horrific trickle effect that wasn't removed today because they've been waiting and waiting. There was an email received on July 26th from Tracy McDevitt of Eversource, which gave the city the notice that they needed a 30-day notification and permit, which was done. They responded to the city with the P number and the PMH number, which I have. And lo and behold, when they didn't appear today, Director Raish contacted Eversource to say hello. And their response was that, well, they didn't hear back from the city and they didn't send anyone out, which is not true. Suffolk multiple times reached back out to Tracy McDevitt. So, Mr. President, here we sit with the beautiful building near completion, with our students finally going into classrooms. And a really important piece didn't happen today. So historically, Councillor Scott had concern with Union Square issues in the past, and we held back on approving requests from Eversource until attention was given when it was due. This $250+ million project and the safety for our students to get into the building needs to be done. So I would ask, through you, Mr. President, if Ms. Duffy has a way of contacting Ms. McDevitt tonight to get back to us so we can speak and find out what's happening. But I'm not comfortable in approving any permit request of Eversource this evening until this high school gets what it deserves.
All right, on the subject, Councilor Ewan-Campen.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. And through you, thank you so much to my colleague, Councilor Rossetti, for raising this. I'm fully in support of sending this to committee until we hear back from Eversource. I'm incredibly frustrated that here we are again. I'm frustrated that Ward 3 residents are going to have to have a project delayed because we have no other way of getting Eversource's attention, apparently. So I'm fully in support of Councilor Rossetti's desire to send this to committee, if that is, through you, Mr. President, her desire. That would be my suggestion here. I will not be supporting any Eversource permits until this gets settled. Thank you.
Okay, I think that's fair to send it to committee. Just real quick though, Jackie, is there any chance you can get us those answers tonight? And we could table this, and or if not, we can just put it in committee and we can get back to this later.
I'm not sure if I can get it tonight, but I will get in touch with them tomorrow.
Okay, well, let's lay this on. Well, let's refer this to licenses and permits.
Okay, and then item number 5 is a grant of location submitted by Eversource to install 116 feet of conduit in Innerbelt Road from manhole 26,995 to a point of pickup at Innerbelt Road and 3rd Ave.
All right, I now declare this public hearing open. Is there anyone in the audience who wishes to speak on this item? Please use the little hand icon. Jackie, you here for this one too? Oh, I see David Breen has his hand raised. David, you're unmuted.
Yes, thank you. I'm the owner of VDA, which is right at the intersection of 3rd Ave and Innerbelt Road. And my only concern is that the last time that this was dug up and more conduit was run, that the bypass actually ran through our back parking lot where we have semi-tractor trailer trucks and lots of other activity and public, our employee parking. And I just wanted to understand, if they're going to be closing the intersection completely, how are they going to feed the traffic rather than running across my private property, which just because I didn't have the gate closed made it possible for that to be used. And I ended up having hundreds of cars running through my back parking lot where my employees were trying to walk to their cars and so on. It was really a very unsafe situation.
All
So I
right.
just want to understand that.
Okay. Jackie, are you here for this item? Can you respond to that?
I am here. We would have a police detail.
I understand there was a police detail there last time, but I was not notified of the fact that hundreds of cars were running through my parking lot.
Okay. I can contact you. You can get my email and call me. Email me or call me.
And how do I reach that information?
Matt McLaughlin has my email.
Let's see. Yes, I'll contact, well, I think what we're going to do first, well, Councilor Rossetti, you have a comment?
Mr. President, if the hearing is closed, I want to react to this request as I did with the previous, and that would allow more time for the owner, the business owner as well, to have his questions answered.
All right. Is anyone else? Oh, sorry, go ahead. Is there anyone else in the audience who wishes to speak on this item? Please use the little hand icon. And David, just so you know, we won't lose track of this, so we'll get back to this. Seeing no one in the audience wanted to speak, I declare this public hearing closed, and now Councilor Rossetti.
Mr. President, thank you. I ask that this also be sent to committee, both for the fact of the concern of the business owner and for the massive holdup of the Somerville High School completion project and the safety of our students and staff.
All right, any further discussion? Seeing none, this item will be referred to license and permits. And David, I'm going to send you my email and phone number in the text. And if you don't get that for some reason, you could contact all of us at citycouncil@somervillema.gov.
Mr. President, may I ask one other question before we move on?
Yes, please.
Thank you. Through you to Ms. Duffy. Jackie, how will we know the outcome of your discussion with Ms. McDevitt of Eversource?
I'll be in touch with Matt or JT. I have both their numbers.
Do you also have Director Rich Raich's contact?
Yes, I do.
Please include him as well.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Appreciate your help. Thank you.
You're welcome. This is the first I heard of it.
Yeah. I wish it weren't true.
I know. I'm saying I wish it wasn't, that I didn't know that it wasn't done.
Well, we'll get to the bottom of this. Until then, this item will be referred to licenses and permits.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Next item, Madam Clerk.
So the next item will take item 8 out of order. An order by City Councilor McLaughlin in his capacity as president, recommending the appointment of Joan Liu to the Traffic Board.
Okay, so what's interesting is we have a traffic commission that everyone knows about, but we also have a traffic board that is almost never used. It is used for appeals only from the traffic commission. So if the traffic commission makes a decision and someone appeals that, the traffic board can review that appeal. And this almost never happens, but it has happened. And now the city has to form a traffic board to review this appeal. And it's very time sensitive because there's a time limit on the appeal. And I have recommended Joan Liu to the traffic board. She's a well-known constituent and activist around transit and pedestrian rights. I think she'd be a fine match for this position. And she is here to speak if anybody had any questions. I would like to approve this position tonight, but I know people enjoy the process of reviewing candidates, and I just want to give people an opportunity if they have any questions or comments. And then, Joan, I'll unmute you real quick just so you can say hi to everybody. You're unmuted on my side.
Hi, can you all hear me? My name is Joan. I've been living in Somerville since 2015. Met Matt McLaughlin, and he's pulled me into becoming an activist, and so I am thankful that he recommended me to the traffic board.
All
That's
right.
sufficient.
That's good for now. We'll see if people have questions. I see Councilor Valentine has a question.
Thank you, Mr. President. The question is more for you than Ms. Liu. Thank you. The question is, who else is on this traffic board?
So it's a 3-person board. The mayor gets to make a recommendation. I get to make a recommendation. And then the 2 recommendations will select a 3rd person. There was a public notification for this process, and I believe the mayor has made a pick, but I don't know who that person is just yet. So the 2 of them would pick a 3rd person.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you, Ms. Liu, for stepping up.
Thank you. Any further questions or comments? Councilor Ba.
Thank you, Mr. President. Just want to say, Ms. Liu and myself also go way back. You know, we are one of the founders of Somerville Alliance for Safe Streets. So just to, emphasize that, yes, she's been doing a lot of good work for transit safety. So I don't have any problem with this appointment.
All right. Would you like to make a motion to approve, Councilor Ba?
Motion to approve, Mr. President.
All right. Councilor Ba moves to approve. Any discussion? Seeing none, this item will be laid on the table for approval. All right. Thank you for coming in, Joan.
And that will bring us to the next item we wanted to take out of order, which is item number 49. A mayor's requesting approval to transfer funds from the sewer capital outlay account to the ordinary maintenance account to settle a pending claim totaling $7,329 for repairs to a blocked residential sewer line.
All right. Councilor Valentine.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move to approve this evening. The resident received, through construction work that a contractor was doing in the street, they blocked the pipe, the sewage pipe to the resident. This was no fault of the resident or the owner, the homeowner, and they were looking to get reimbursed for the problem caused by the contractor the city hired.
Okay, is there any further discussion on this item? Thank you, Councilor Niedergang. Seeing no further comment, this item's laid on the table for approval.
And that will bring us to the next item we wanted to take out of order, a request of the mayor requesting a supplemental appropriation of $138,281 to various accounts in the elections department to fund in-person early voting in September and November.
Okay, can we also read the other 2 items that are related to elections?
We can indeed. The other 2 were, let's see, items 59, which is a request of the mayor requesting approval of the in-person early voting schedule for the September 14th, 2021 preliminary and the November 2nd, 2021 general election. And item 60, a request of the mayor requesting approval for specified city employees to work the September 14th, 2021 preliminary election and the November 2nd, 2021 general election.
Okay, so we got 3 items before us, and we have Nick Solano from the elections department here to speak. Wearing a mask indoors, I see. Nick, you have the floor.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. President. As you know, this was an unexpected bill by the legislature that happened very late at the insistence of Secretary Galvin. And therefore, we knew we were going to have mail-in voting, but that's mandated by the state anyway, even though it's part of the bill. But the other part of it is the early voting. And it was left up to the communities, the cities, to either opt in or opt out of early voting. And I'm sure that the council, as well as the mayor's office in their wisdom, is all in favor of early voting. So therefore, we're going forward with it, hopefully with your support. We didn't have a lot of time to put all of this together. However, what we did is we put a lot of these numbers together based on historical events, historical transactions. It may seem like a lot of money, and it is a lot of money, but it takes into account both early voting for the September 14th preliminary and the November 2nd general election. And it also takes in, it'll cover the costs of the mail-in voting portion of it, which is, will be held, we've already started with mail-in based on what the state has given us. So we've done as much homework as we could on getting this all together in order for the council to get a clear picture of it. And hopefully there is a clear picture. And if there isn't, both myself and Megan Aruda from the Elections Department are here to answer any inquiries that the good councilors may have. And we are also, the third part of it is, we haven't had to do it in a few years, but we are requesting council approval to hire certain city employees who will be taking vacation days on election day to work for elections. So it's 3 separate items here. If you have any questions, please let us know.
On the item, Councilor Niedergang.
Thank you, Mr. President, and thank you, Mr. Salerno, for getting this together. It's been difficult given the short time frame. Myself, I'm fine with the money. Couldn't think of a better expenditure. I'm fine with allowing city employees to work the elections. I know it's hard to get people. I have a question about the schedule for early voting. I like the schedule for the general. For early voting, my question is, why is there not early voting on a weekend? So, for example, it would be early voting on Saturday, September 11th and Sunday, September 12th, since that's when, most people are most easily available since they're not working, or the Saturday and, well, I guess that's Labor Day weekend, so that wouldn't work. So why, just a question about the schedule on the early voting for the preliminary election. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Counselor. Through the chair, Labor Day weekend is the weekend prior to that you noted, Councilor Niedergang. So Labor Day weekend starts like I think Labor Day itself is the 6th. And we knew that that would not draw any attention and it would be a rather expensive situation. So, and then the 7th and the 8th are Jewish holidays. So what we thought we would do is, and we checked around with what other cities are doing, and we thought we would have the voting, early voting, Tuesday the 7th, Wednesday the 8th, Thursday the 9th, the late night, and Friday. Now, we have to, by law, stop voting on our regular business hours on the Friday before the preliminary election. It's a kind of an odd situation, but according to the statute, the last day for early voting is the day before the business day before the preliminary. So the business day before the preliminary is Monday the 13th, and the next business day before that is Friday the 10th, which is when we have to stop. We're governed by some regulations here.
Great, thank you for that answer. That's an absolutely fine answer. No options to do the weekend. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Any further questions or comments? Hearing none, these 3 items will be laid on the table for approval. Thank you, Nick.
Thank you all.
And that will return us to the regular order of business, item number 6, an order by Councilor McLaughlin that this council adopt a code of conduct and anti-harassment policy.
All right, so some of you may remember that a few months ago, the City Council and Mayor's Office allocated money to review our policies on workplace and sexual harassment. This is the recommendation from the consultant that we hired. Other cities have adopted similar codes of conduct and anti-harassment policies, and I'm glad that we finally gotten to this point. I think, it's something that every city, every council, every workplace could use something like this. I'm hoping that everybody feels willing to sign on to it. This is language that I have not come up with myself. This is from the consultant, and I will be referring this to the Rules Committee so that everyone has time to review it and understand what they're signing on to and feel comfortable with that. And I see Councilor Ewan-Campen, Strezzo, Klingon, and Ballantyne would like to sign on. And if there is no further discussion, I will just be referring this to the Rules Committee. And eventually, Councilor Davis would like to sign on, and Ba. And we can have that discussion and then eventually come back and everybody can sign the understanding here. So seeing no further discussion, Councilor Rossetti?
Mr. President, yeah, I'm sorry to interrupt you, sir, if I may. I know I brought to your attention, I'd like to discharge an item out of confirmation of appointments and refer it to rules because it has the same topic as this order by yourself, sir, but it's been in the Confirmation Appointments Committee since 2018, an order that was submitted by Councilor Ballantyne, myself, and Councilor Hirsch, which mirrors similarities to this request. So it is agenda item number 205107 I would like to discharge.
Okay, well, first let's refer this to the License and Permits Committee, and then Councilor Rossetti would like to discharge order. Can you say the number again?
Rules.
You're sending it to rules, sir.
What did I say?
License and permits.
Rules Committee. That was the last order. Rules Committee and Councilor Rossetti, what item would you like to discharge?
I move to discharge item 205107 out of confirmation of appointments.
Okay. You got the number there, Kim?
I do, and that item does require a roll call vote, Mr. President.
Good. Roll call vote on discharging the item.
Perfect. Councilor Niedergang.
Yes.
Councilor White.
Yes.
Councilor Ballantyne.
Yes.
Councilor Ewan-Campen.
Yes.
Councilor Davis.
Yes.
Councilor Strezzo.
Yes.
Councilor Klingon.
Yes.
Councilor Mba.
Yes, please.
Councilor Scott.
Yes.
Councilor Rossetti.
Yes.
And Councilor McLaughlin.
Yes.
All councilors are in favor. That motion is approved.
All right, the item's now before us, and Madam Clerk, if you can, Councilor Strezzo asks for you to read the item number again.
Give me just a second
I can
to
help
find
it.
that item. Thank you, Councilor Rossetti.
I have it. 205107
Yep.
from
And that-
April 18, 2018.
Thank you.
And that's out of confirmation of appointments. Councilor Rossetti, you have the floor.
Yeah, I'd like to now move this into rules, please.
All right, seeing no further discussion, this item will be referred to the Rules Committee.
Thank you, sir.
Next item.
Thank you, councilors. That brings us to item number 7, an order by Councilor McLaughlin that the city clerk's office discontinue providing badges to councilors and that councilors refrain from using badges to enforce laws.
All right, so this is not one that I want to make a big deal about, but I feel like people have a lot of questions and not know what I'm talking about. So the city council, when I first got on, we were all issued a badge, which looks like this. It looks like a police badge. And we all got this badge, and I remember when I got this, I kind of laughed to myself, wondered what this was about, and people were kind of like, oh, you know, it's just a tradition, this is what we do. I thought it was obvious that it was a novelty, and I understood that it carries no weight in terms of enforcing anything, or it doesn't give us any additional authority to have this badge. And I thought that, you know, this would be kind of universally understood, and I was wrong in that respect. So I was curious about this, and I talked to the city clerk and solicitor's office, and actually this policy, or this badge, came into existence about 100 years ago. And when a councilor just put in an order saying, hey, I want a badge, and there wasn't anything else that went into it besides that. And knowing the sordid history of Somerville politics going back 100 years, I can't imagine that this badge over the last 100 years was used for legitimate purposes. I also asked the solicitor's office for input on this issue, and he provided his opinion, which you can find in the policy order, which takes it even a step further than what I feel, which is just like not a good idea to use this badge. He goes so far as to think that it could actually get us into some trouble if people use these badges to enforce laws that we don't have the ability to enforce. So I'll just say this, I am nobody's keeper. I'm nobody's boss here. I think a lot of people misunderstand the role of the president and think that I am in charge of individuals. I am not, and I don't have that much authority to do anything aside assign committees and make appointments. And this is not really directed for people on this current council, but it was suggested recently that the new clerk prepare badges for the next council. And that does concern me to have, you know, potentially 5, 6 new councilors with badges thinking that they can go around town enforcing the laws. So that's what this is about for me. It's just making sure that this practice is discontinued. I don't think we need badges. We have business cards, we have other methods, and that's what this is about. And I see Councilor Ballantyne would like to sign on. Councilor Niedergang would like to keep your badge. You can keep your badge, Councilor Niedergang. Councilor Klingon would like to sign on, and Councilor Scott would like to sign on, and Councilor Rossetti would like to comment.
Thank you, Mr. President. Briefly, I just want to thank you for putting this forward. I wished I had done same. When Clerk long ago gave me the badge, I laughed. I thought it was a joke. And then my next question was, how much is this costing the city to give us these? And what are we going to do with them, really? So thank you very much for stepping up and putting this before us. And I wholeheartedly support it. Thank you.
All right, thank you. And yes, Councilor Davis, I was going to say we don't need no stinking badges, but you beat me to it. Councilor White.
Thank you, Mr. President. I do want to make it clear that Councilor Rossetti and I were not on the old Board of Aldermen 100 years ago when this was instituted. So just to make the record clear. We've been on for a while, but not that long.
All right, thank you. Any further discussion? Seeing none, this item's laid on the table for approval.
And that will bring us to item number 9, an order by Councilor McLaughlin and Councilor Klingon that the Director of Health and Human Services identify a location for a harm reduction site to provide alternative methods of addressing substance abuse while plans for a safe consumption site are prepared.
Councilor Davis would like to sign on. And I'll try to be brief on this one, but as you all know, this is an important issue for me. You know, we're getting a lot of headlines. Councilor Scott would like to sign on as well, and Councilor Klingon will speak, but we're getting a lot of headlines for the safe consumption site concept. And there's a lot of work going into it, but I haven't seen any real results just yet. I'm concerned about the progress of it, something as simple as, you know, picking a location and trying to find, you know, where we're going to do this, hiring staff, things like this. I've been told that the safe consumption site will actually happen this term, and that gives me less confidence that this is going to happen, because I don't think that's a realistic goal to get it done this term, as much as I would like to see it happen. It gives me less confidence that it will happen when something like that is stated. And I really want to just move beyond the headlines, and there's other methods of harm reduction we could be focused on, not giving up on the safe consumption sites, but focusing on ones that are already allowed to happen and exist in other cities in America. I feel like we're focusing all our efforts on something that may or may not ever happen, but there's many things we can do right now. And it also, as an aside, it also concerns me that, you know, we've been dealing with this issue for several years, and we've been told on the record a few times that the city is not allocating money directly for treatment and for things outside of the safe consumption site. But we will for the safe consumption site. And I'm not against money for the site, but there's money we can be using for many other issues that will involve harm reduction, involve life-saving. And these are the things that I think we should focus on while we're trying to identify a safe consumption site. Let's identify a harm reduction site, get the ball rolling on this, and then when we finally have the ability to implement a safe consumption site, we can use that. So I see Councilor Barr would like to sign on, and Councilor Niedergang, Councilor Ballantyne. See Councilor Klingon, you wanted to speak.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. President. I just wanted to, you know, thank you again for bringing this up. just the importance of, I don't think people quite understand when it comes to Somerville, just like how far behind we are in some ways. We're so far ahead in some ways, but it was only about a year and a half ago that the Somerville Board of Health voted to allow for the exchange of needles. Like in Cambridge has a Cambridge Needle Exchange, which is now Fenway Health. And you know, they would come in sometime. A few years ago, I remember they came in and did some mini clinics out of Connections, the church down on Lower Broadway, but they weren't able to exchange any needles, used ones for new clean ones. That, you know, and this is so important in stopping the spread of disease, of hepatitis C, and so many other diseases, as well as just getting folks in to and have that point of contact. So the city is now, the Board of Health has voted to allow for that, and there are great organizations doing that work. And so it just makes a lot of sense to me that, you know, Somerville should have its own needle exchange program. Whoever runs it is, you know, that's neither here nor there. It could be Fenway Health, but ultimately, to your point, and when you brought this up to me, the reason why I'm so supportive is because it makes so much sense. It's something we should be doing and could be doing now and should be doing now. And so let's get moving on. Thank you.
Thank you. Seeing no further conversation, I'm going to refer this to the Public Health Committee. So this item will be laid on the table for approval and referred to Public Health. Next item.
And that will bring us to item number 10, an order by Councilor McLaughlin that the Director of Infrastructure and Asset Management update this council on efforts to prevent flooding under the Washington Street Bridge.
So I'm sure a lot of you are dealing with flooding issues around the city. The Washington Street Bridge issue, though, was one that was supposed to be addressed from the Green Line construction, where the future Green Line station is going to be. There has been work done to it, I believe, and it seems like the problem very much still exists. So I would just like to get an answer on this. I won't be referring this to committee. It will be laid on the table for approval, but I'd like to know what's being done to address the flooding issue on the Washington Street Bridge. Seeing no further conversation, this item is laid on the table for approval.
Which brings us to item 11, an order by Councilor McLaughlin that the Director of Inspectional Services and the Director of Health and Human Services update this council on rodent control enforcement and vacant positions within the rodent task force.
Okay, I'm sure everybody knows about this issue. Don't need to make a speech, but we have a rodent control position that was ably filled at one point and is now unfortunately empty. And I'd like to make sure that this position gets rehired as soon as possible, and also find out what enforcement measures are going on to make sure that we're actually addressing the rodent issue. Councilor Klingon, Valentine, Strezzo, Ba, Scott would all like to sign on. This item will be laid on the table for approval and referred to the rodent committee.
Excellent. And that brings us to item 12, a communication by Councilor Rossetti in her capacity as president following the recusal of President McLaughlin, announcing the appointment of Councilor Jesse Klingon to serve on the Police Chief Selection Committee.
And I am recused. Councilor Rossetti.
Mr. President, thank you. Yes, as you have been recused on this and the next item, Madam Clerk, I would like to also ask you to read item 12.
Well, you have the floor now, Councilor Rossetti. You're the acting president.
Yeah, okay, so.
Yes, the item that I
sir.
just read was item 12, and I'll read item 13 as well.
13,
A communication by Councilor Rossetti in her capacity as president following the recusal of President McLaughlin, announcing the appointment of Councilor Lance Davis to serve on the Public Safety Building Committee.
Thank you, ma'am. So yes, given that our president has recused himself from issues, any items before us involving the police department, I had that responsibility. I did send communication to colleagues, having taken in the input of responses. I did make my decision for Councilor Klingon, who has voiced to me he is happy to accept that. So I want to thank Councilor Klingon for serving in his capacity as a member of the City Council on this very important committee. And additionally, our Chair of Public Health and Public Safety, Councilor Lance Davis, has agreed to serve for us on this important additional committee, as the future of the public safety building is discussed and hopefully built someday. So I want to thank both our colleagues for agreeing to take on another important role in our busy lives. Madam Clerk, if you go to the next item, please.
Yes, indeed. That brings us to item 14, a communication by Councilor Rossetti, a report of the high school building committee meetings of July and August.
So thank you, ma'am. So we did, our colleagues, through you, to my colleagues and to the public, this committee did meet over the summer, and our most recent meeting, I will give you the most recent report. The budget is a little difficult right now, so negotiations have begun with Suffolk and other contractors that the city is handling. I had requested that the building committee be brought abreast of discussions and negotiations. So in September, at our September meeting, we will be holding, if needed, an executive session in addition to our public meeting to be brought up to speed on the negotiations with the invoices and items of price that are questionable by the city. We also need to see the updated change order log, which we did not receive in this packet, so that will be given to us as well. For the community to understand, the Department of DESE, the Department of Education, and our Career Tech Ed programs approvals for the education in those two buildings that is ongoing. The goal is to have everything certified by November 1st. There has been, and there are tours happening. Actually, the other day there were tours by that department, by state for authority, looking at our cosmetology department, where they have to be by the books for many items. That's an example. So they will be doing a walkthrough with the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education on September 5th to get that temporary certification and have the final certification hopefully by November 1st. The auditorium, which was delayed because of some of the discoveries during the project, as you all know, I'm happy to say is just about complete. It is beautiful. Over the next 10 days, they anticipate receiving a temporary certificate of occupancy. The reason it's not given yet, that is being driven by the elevators, and as you know, elevators have their own set of guidelines, and our fire department also has to go in and inspect and approve. So hopefully between September 1st and 3rd, the temporary certificate of occupancy will be approved. The last phase of the project, which would be the athletic field out in back, has had tremendous amounts of asbestos discovered in the soils. Finally, they have found a site to take these soils, and going by very strict Department of Environmental Protection guidelines and oversight, 18,500 yards of soil will be removed over the course of the next 3 months. Hopefully that soil removal will be completed mid-December, which will then allow the construction of the new field to really get underway more so. The punch list for the entire project now has 378 items being worked on for correction of minor issues that needed some adjustments, and that is being watched very closely by the committee and by our project manager. As far as I know, there's been concern, and the community is anxious, and so am I, to have the community come in and see this beautiful building. At this particular meeting, the superintendent voiced, given the rise in the COVID numbers, she, as superintendent, wants to put as the #1 priority the safety of the staff and students. So to have a lot of people going through the building and touring and whatnot may not be ideal right now. The city is hoping that they can have some sort of celebration and ribbon cutting, which would all be done outside. There's going to be another video done very soon by the project team to be posted up on the website so the public can see the updated video of the beauty of the inside of this building and what our students will be in total control of, and they're going to love it. So someday we'll all get in there ourselves. I was anxious to share it with you, my colleagues, but it just can't be. I don't see it happening for a while. Maybe small pods, but the city does want to have celebration. We will continue monthly meetings only till September, and then the committee has decided that they now will move the meetings to every other month. So I would like to remind you, to whomever will be the new president for the calendar year 2022, I will no longer be serving. I won't be able to represent the council on this committee. I think I've been serving on it for 6 years now. I would love to have been to the end, but it just can't be. So just food for thought for somebody to think about who would like to be a member of this committee effective January. And I'll be glad to bring everybody up to speed, whoever that person will be. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you very much. If there's no further discussion, this item will be laid on the table and placed on file.
And that puts us at item number 15, a resolution by Councilor Mba, Councilor Scott, and Councilor Ewan-Campen requesting the establishment of a restitution program for current and former residents who have been harmed by the war on drugs.
Councilor Mba.
Thank you, Mr. President. Oh, wow. I don't have my light isn't super clear. As 1 second. Okay. Yeah, thank you, Mr. President. I guess this is pretty straightforward. You know, Somerville, we are not immune to the impact of the war on drugs. So this is a resolution that was even passed by the city of Cambridge. I just, thought that we also have a moral obligation to oppose something like this. So it's pretty straightforward. I'll ask Clerk Wells if she could please read the resolution. Clerk Wells?
Madam Clerk, could you please read the resolution?
I can. One moment, please, while I open that up. Thank you all. Whereas, in addition to and separate from reparations for slavery, Somerville also needs to grapple with its historic and ongoing complicit role in the racist war on drugs that has traumatized thousands of Black and brown residents and cheated many of their freedom, education, economic prospects, and in some cases, their very lives, necessitating both an apology for the harms done and an effort to offer restitution. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Mayor's office is hereby requested to direct the appropriate city staff to establish a restitution program that would take a to-be-determined percentage of revenue from local cannabis sales and distribute these monies to current and former Somerville residents who have been harmed by the war on drugs, with a targeted launch date of July 2022, and be it further resolved that the Mayor's office is hereby requested to report back to the City Council on any progress made toward this endeavor by October 4th, 2021.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, Clerk Wells.
All right, any further discussion? Seeing none, I do want to comment on this for a second because I don't think it's as clear cut as was said. And I do have some concerns about this. I don't have any moral concerns about it, but I do have some practical concerns. First, the war on drugs is not over. It's a continuing problem. And this isn't a sin from the past that we've moved on from and now can reconcile. I have a lot of questions about how this will be implemented, who will get money, how much, what qualifications will they need in order to get this money. I don't think there's a dollar amount that will make the war on drugs okay for somebody. I don't think there's an amount of money that can be given to somebody that will reconcile for what's happened in the past. We could give every applicant who applies for this $1 million each, and it wouldn't solve the problem, but it would take away from other resources that we're working on. So I do have questions. Are we going to give money to somebody who say they got arrested selling drugs in 1987 and lived in Somerville for a year? Does that person qualify? What drugs? Is this just marijuana? Is this other drugs? And I think if we go down this road, we're going to have to create an entire department to review applicants, distribute funds, when we could use all that money to address the problem that exists presently. Like, this problem has not gone away. It still exists. And I've tried to focus my efforts on getting away from the bad national policies that we have on a local level and helping the people that are presently suffering. And I don't think this addresses past grievances, but it doesn't address present on the ground issues, could potentially take away money from addressing those on the ground issues. And there's not much of a big picture payoff outside of the few people fortunate enough to get some money from this. So these are just my concerns. I do appreciate the intent and addressing the past sins of the war on drugs, but I just did feel the need to speak because I don't think it's quite obvious what we're doing. But if there's no further discussion, I will lay this item on the table for approval.
Mr. President,
Councilor Rossetti?
I would prefer, I haven't signed on to it. I would like it to go to a committee, not to be approved.
Okay. Any discussion on that? Hearing no further discussion, I'll refer this to the Public Health Committee. Next item.
Thank you, Mr. President. That brings us to item 16, a resolution by Councilor Ewan-Campen, Councilor Strezzo, and the mayor supporting House Bill 1434 and Senate Bill 891, an act to prevent COVID-19 evictions and foreclosures and promote an equitable housing recovery.
All right, Councilor Ballantyne would like to sign on. Councilor Ewan-Campen.
Thank you very much, Mr. President, and thank you to Councilor Strezzo for co-sponsoring this, and to the Mayor's Office and to the Office of Housing Stability. So as all of us know, outside of the direct health impacts of the pandemic, the most devastating effects of this pandemic have been what they have done to our housing crisis. When the pandemic came to Massachusetts, thousands of residents overnight lost their income through no fault of their own, and many of those people in our neighborhoods have been dealing with very serious threats of displacement ever since. And despite Herculean efforts of so many in our community to support tenants and to connect them with resources and to disperse the rescue money that has been provided, the crisis is nowhere near over. And recently, housing advocates from across the greater Boston area and across the state have come together to prioritize the passage of this bill, the COVID-19 Housing Equity Bill, which was co-sponsored by Senator Jalen in the Senate and has been supported by our entire delegation in the House. And I just wanted to briefly describe what is actually in this bill and what it would do to help tenants facing displacement and property owners facing foreclosures. So this bill would pause all no-fault evictions until March of 2022, and it would ensure that households cannot be evicted for non-payment due to COVID-19 if they are at risk of homelessness, if there are minors or seniors or people with disabilities or medical conditions that would increase their risk of COVID. And it would also pause foreclosures. And it would also ensure that before any eviction can proceed, landlords would need to document that they are actively working with the tenants to access rental assistance. We know how much rental assistance is actually out there, and one of the main issues now is making sure that tenants are able to actually access it. Needless to say, this bill would be unbelievably important for many thousands of people in Somerville and across the state. And I'm very grateful for the opportunity to lend this city council's support to these efforts.
Councilor Strezzo.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm grateful to work along so many advocates to make this possible, and thank you to my colleague, Councilor Ewan-Campen, for co-sponsoring this, and to the administration as well for this. This is a step, one of many, and I think it really highlights just what a human crisis we have. This is a step. We have to take a lot more steps to alleviate the trauma and stress and disparity we're experiencing. It's not going away. We have to take more active steps. That's all I have to say, and thank you very much.
All right, Councilor Barr and Scott would like to sign on, and Klingon. Seeing no further discussion, this item is laid on the table for approval.
And item number 17 is a resolution by Councilors Ewan-Campen and Niedergang that the administration purchase 57 Central Street, aka Central Street Studios, and continue to maintain the existing building as artist studios and/or affordable artist live-work spaces.
Councilor Ewan-Campen.
Thank you, Mr. President. Central Street Studios is an artist building that's it's on Central, on the block between Avon and Berkeley. It's a 2-story commercial building. And as I know many members of the public learned recently from a series of news articles, the owners of that building recently announced that after almost 40 years of running the building as artist studios, they're retiring and they're selling the building. And as we know, this has the potential to just be one more example in a very tragic and growing pattern of artist space in Somerville being lost, which is an enormous loss to our community. So I'm very thankful to Councilor Niedergang. We have been in conversations with several of the tenant artists, as well as the administration. And it seems to me that there is a lot to try to come to the table and figure out what are options to make sure that this building remains a public good going forward. So I put in this order tonight because I've gotten a number of questions from the public based on news reports about the sale of the building. And I want to make it clear that this is very much on our radar and it's something that we are working on to try to make a good outcome. For myself, I think one of the best possible outcomes would be if the city is able to purchase the building and maintain it as either artist studio space or as affordable artists live workspace, recognizing that there are a lot of hurdles to any such project. I would also certainly support looking at applying the Affordable Housing Overlay District to this property, which is it's an existing decent-sized commercial building. I've confirmed with the city that this could be converted to affordable housing with and could fit a sizable number of units in the existing building under the Affordable Housing Overlay District. So I just wanted to make sure that the council and the public was aware that this is something we are paying attention to and working on. After Councilor Niedergang speaks, I would ask that these please be sent to Housing and Community Development so we can follow up.
All right, I got several people want to sign on. Councilor Barr, Valentine, Scott, and Councilor Niedergang wants to comment, so I'll give Councilor Niedergang and then Councilor Scott.
Thank you, Mr. President, and to Councilor Ewan-Campen. We have spoken with the owners of the building. They would love to see it artist studios or for affordable housing if that doesn't work out. As far as I can tell, the administration is really interested in this, which of course doesn't mean that it will be feasible, but I think there is strong interest on the part of the administration. So, you know, I'm very excited and hopeful about possibilities. It would, you know, if it were purchased by the city, it would join with the, and hopefully this is the beginning of, I don't know what, a arts authority, or there'll be more buildings purchased. And we're all aware of other important artist venues in the city, such as Vernon Street Studios, which, you know, nobody knows what their future is. And I'm convinced that unless the city purchases buildings, we're going to lose most of the artists from the city. Thank you.
Councilor Scott.
Thank you, Mr. President, and I just want to say thank you to councilors from Ward 5 and Ward 3 for bringing this forward. And I just want to make the point here that I think this is a really important step of activism and direction from the City Council. You know, I recall back in 2018, I think it was, when I brought an eminent domain seizure request for a site that was going to turn into condos, and you know, there was a large amount of desire from the community for green space in Ward 2 in that place in particular, and there was a lot of community organizing around it. It took a while to get that done, but we did get it done, and I think it's an example of how an activist city council can push us in those directions. So I'm wholeheartedly in favor of this, and I think the ward councilors' awareness of what kind of real estate activity is happening in the wards, it brings a unique opportunity to get ahead of some of the, I don't know what else to call them, the market tragedies that happen. So wholeheartedly in support of identifying these opportunities and then making the absolute most of them. once the city has those properties to make them the biggest public good we can. So thank you very much. Happy to support this and sign.
All right, any further comment? Seeing none, this item will be laid on the table for approval and referred to Housing and Community Development.
And item number 18 is a resolution by City Councilor Ewan Campen that the administration work with this council to begin a public process to consider removing the phrase honorably purchased from the Pawtuckets 1639 from the Somerville seal and flag.
Councilor Davis would like to sign on. Councilor Ewan Campen.
Thank you, Mr. President. The Somerville seal and our flag, it's an image of the old powder house. And then around the outside, it says the motto, municipal freedom gives national strength. And then there's this line, honorably purchased from Pawtucket, 1639. And over the past 4 years, I've received maybe a dozen questions about the phrase, how it wound up on the seal, who decided to put it there, why it's there. This has gotten a little bit more frequent, actually, now that the state of Massachusetts is working on removing the offensive image of a Native American on the state flag. And to be honest, whenever I get these questions, I don't have a good answer. And I don't pretend to have the answer to this. But I do think that we need to have a conversation about our seal and for us to kind of learn what was the process that led to that phrase being on the flag. And I just want to note, I'm not a historian. If you visit the Prospect Hill Park, which was recently renovated, there's a series of these historical plaques, and one of them is dedicated to what is called the contact period, the kind of early period where European settlers and the Massachusetts Federation, who were the Native American people who lived on the land on this side of the Charles River, that we now call Somerville. And on the plaque, it says, in 1639, the widow of a former leader of the Federation sold the land to the Massachusetts Bay Colony while retaining hunting and fishing licenses. But that same plaque, right above that, it also says that in the 4 decades leading up to that sale, 75% of the Massachusetts Federation died, many as the result of conflict and disease from Europeans. 75%. So that number includes the husband of the woman, we don't know this woman's name, who sold the land to the colonists. Her husband was killed in a raid. So I have a hard time squaring the idea of the sale being honorable when it comes at the tail end of a period where 75% of the native population died. So I want to be very clear. This is not a decision that I should be making, that I think that this council should be making in a vacuum. But I do think that our community should have this conversation, and that we should be reaching out to the Native American community and to everyone who has questions about this. My thought is that this could be something that the Memorialization Committee could take up and launch a public process so that we can learn more and make a decision about whether we want to have this phrase on our seal.
All right, Councilor Scott would like to sign on. Can Councilor Klingon has a comment?
Question for the good counselor. I thought a lot about this myself, and I know you've brought it to me before, and I know I've said it's complicated because it is complicated. I think that number one, I want to ask if it's simply, like, we don't need to do a whole thing if it's simply removing the word honorably, because I think that the history shows that there was a purchase made. So for me, like, the hard part is that number one, we do know the woman's name was the Great Squaw Sachem and of the Mystic, and we don't know her actual name, but we know that she was extremely respected and revered in this area. We know that she did have a relationship with some of the English. I think by even discussing removal as white people rather than having a native outcry was happening for this, I think that it would be a lot more a lot more valid of a discussion in the sense that we'd be erasing the decision making and the thought and the judgment of the Great Squaw Sachem, who was trying to protect her people. And again, this relationship may not have been, it may have been out of necessity, but nonetheless, the facts remain that there was a relationship and there was a selling of the land. So if we take off the part about the Pawtucket in general, like, I'm just not sure where we're going to end up going with this outside of essentially what I believe is dishonoring the Great Squaw Sachem. So if it's a matter of taking the word honorable off, if that would, and I'd be affable to that. I think, you know, we could probably just, we don't need a committee to do that. If it's about having a long drawn out process where it's politicized and people, you know, it does nothing to advance the native people or the plight in current day terms, or doesn't change the past of the facts of the way things happened here with the Grace Quasatchum and the way that she just dispensed the land upon her, you know, retirement, whatever the deals that she made. I think that she should be honored and her decision making should be honored. So I would just ask the good counselor if this is a matter of just removal of the word honorable, or where are we going with this?
Councilor Euan-Campen.
Thank you, Mr. President. Through you, first of all, let me thank Councilor Klingon. This is exactly the conversation that I would like to have, and I certainly do not pretend to have the answers to any of these. I don't have an opinion on whether it would be a good idea or a sufficient idea to just remove the word honorably. The issue, as I see it, is I don't think that this history is well understood, certainly by me and by many constituents that I hear from. And I think that it would be valuable for our community to learn about how that phrase wound up on the flag. And if the decision that we ultimately come to is that that phrase is a way of honoring the people who made that sale, I can certainly live with that. But I'd say I've gotten enough questions about this and enough confusion and people who feel uncomfortable with it that I didn't want to wait for someone else to raise the issue. There's kind of no good or convenient time to raise this, so I decided to do it now.
Okay, just to finish up, thank you, thank you, Councilor, through you, Mr. President. You know, like I said, I really thought about this a lot. I went back, I called a lot of, you know, my mother was founder of the Intertribal Council of Tola Menahan, which was an intertribal council based out of the TAB building in Somerville. It was for urban Indians to come together and just kind of learn about Native history. And, you know, so I called some of her friends. She has since passed, but I called some of her friends that used to live in Somerville that are currently displaced. And, you know, I asked, like, did this ever come up? Like, was this ever, like, what you know, what were, and, you know, they said, no, it had never come up. And I think the discussion is worth having. My fear is that it will, you know, the similar situations happen in Natick right now and Newton. And I think that our desire to change history that we don't necessarily like, I'm afraid that it's going to diminish the Native people that were here and the decisions that they made at that time for the people. But anyway, I look forward to the discussion. If it is something we can do without a big process, you know, if the word honorable is the problem, otherwise the facts are there. The deed is in the Somerville Museum. So that's the problem. That's why I have a hard time with kind of doing this going through this whole thing. But if the people are uncomfortable, you know, I'll bring some natives down and we'll have a discussion.
All right, any further discussion? All right, hearing none, just a procedural question here because, so this is an item we can refer to the Memorialization Committee, which we do not control. We have representation on, but we don't control it. And ultimately, this would be a decision from the mayor's office, I believe, to change anything. So, Councilor Euan-Campen, would you want to approve this item and refer to the Memorial Committee, or were you trying to have a discussion with the council on it?
Thank you, Mr. President. No, at this point, I submitted this as a resolution asking for us to consider this, and my hope for the process is that the Memorialization Committee could take this up. I don't think that a council discussion on it at this point makes sense.
Okay, so we can approve it and have a copy sent to the Memorial Committee.
Thank you.
All right, Councilor Dodd, do you have a question?
Yes, Mr. President, if we send it to the Memorialization Committee, you know, I would want to make sure that we are doing everything we can to make sure that our outreach on this from the Memorialization Committee or from anybody in the city that takes us up would be striving to bring in as many Native voices into this conversation as possible. And I don't want it to just get kicked out and then have memorialization make a decision and come back to us without that. So I know Councilor Rossetti does serve on that committee, so I would just urge that the process not be a rushed one, but one that we can make as inclusive as possible.
Councilor Rossetti?
Thank you, sir. I can't recall what the actual ordinance says and the guidance that this committee has under our city ordinance. This might be going off of what the ordinance says is the responsibilities of. I will also say that in the meetings that we've held to date, which have been quite a few, it's hard to have public hearings and get public's input when we're living in this COVID land. And, you know, you can't welcome people or go out on the street corners and have assemblies and make sure everybody's aware. So it bothers me a lot that the committee, which I'm very happy to serve on, and I'm learning so much about our city history, but we are making decisions. Sometimes I feel like we're making decisions in a vacuum. And it does come, a lot of them do come out to the council as a communication in case there's any concern from a council member to voice it at that time. I don't know, the memorialization committee so far really hasn't had huge outreach, huge community involvement. I'm going to be honest. We're working on it. We haven't got there yet. And we continue to name things in people's memories by going off a list that we as members are suggesting be considered. And it's a bunch of people in a committee room who have been making all these decisions. So I understand that, you know, the request by both yourself, Councilor Ewan-Campen, and Councilor Clingan to make sure there's community involvement in this. This committee hasn't done that yet. So I think COVID's really hampering a lot of our efforts. And I hate to say that, but it is. Jesse Moose is the city's employee who drives this committee for us. Kerry Conley is our chair. You know, I'll be glad to share it with them at our next meeting. Actually, I don't think we're meeting. We're meeting in September, but we're having a tour. We've been invited for a tour. So it's not really our official meeting. So I think our next meeting will be in October. I can mention it at the October meeting, but I just want to be honest with you all. I don't know how we're going to be able to involve the public on this one now.
All right, well, the flags live for 100 years or so, so hopefully we have some time. I see Councilor Bauer would like to comment, Councilor White, and then Councilor Clingan.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. President. I just want to underscore what Chairman Scott just said, because yes, we can, once this is something very significant, and it's good to have like an informed conversation. And so the memorialization committee is not even one of like the council committees. So either you, Mr. President, or maybe Claire Wells, I know Councilor Rossetti said she's going to mention it to JC Moore, but it's good we have a formal process of communication so that once this meeting is having with this conversation, we know that the appropriate channels and outreach has been well thought out, you know, just so that we can have a robust discussion. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. We got Councilor White.
Thank you, Mr. President. That is the city seal, which is established by ordinance. So the way it would be changed, it would be for this city council to amend or pass a new ordinance for whatever it wanted on the city seal. So I really don't think it would be one that would go to the memorialization committee, since this is something which is within our control and power as the body that enacts ordinances. So, however, the president would think it most expeditious, but I think it should be kept retained by us, since ultimately we do have the say.
Okay, I thought for sure we'd need a home rule petition for this one. I have Councilor Clingan on the deck, but I also have Lauren Recanello. I guess Councilor White addressed Lauren's concerns. Councilor Klingon?
Yeah, Mr. President, I just want to make it clear that as Councilor Rossetti misspoke, that I do not feel comfortable going to that memorialization committee. I said a discussion I invite a discussion, but like most other cities and towns, they actually end up putting together like a special committee or something, because you bring the historians in and whatever. That's why I was trying to avoid the whole thing by just taking honorable off. I mean, and then there's no dispute as to what it's in the Somerville Museum. So perhaps as a council we could just do that at some point. But I do, as far as the memorialization committee, I don't want to put any political pressure on them, or it doesn't need to go there as far as I'm concerned.
Well, I think even if we agreed to get rid of the word honorable, that would still need to be addressed with ordinance. So it sounds like a legislative matters issue. So if there's no further discussion, I'm just going to refer this item with no vote to the Legislative Matters Committee, and we can discuss it there. Any further discussion? Seeing none, this item is referred to Legislative Matters.
Excellent. So item number 19 is an order by Councilor Ewan Campen that the Director of Engineering update this council on what work has been done over the past 2 years to alleviate flooding on Richdale Avenue.
Councilor Ewan Campen.
Thank you, Mr. President. I know that several of my colleagues, Councilor Klingon and Strezzo, have an order on this, so I'm not going to belabor the point. The bottom line is that the flooding on Richdale Ave, it's one of several areas of the city where the flooding is just completely unacceptable. Every time it happens, the residents are terrified and angry, and we do everything that we can to advocate on their behalf. And yet, as far as I can tell, we're not really any closer than we were 4 years ago to actually fixing the flooding problem. So my memory is that the issue was discussed in semi-great detail 1 or 2 years ago, and that there was a conversation with the Director of Engineering at the time that looked at some of the more short-term fixes that could be done, with the acknowledgement that they would not solve the problem, but as we work towards kind of large-scale infrastructure in the area, that there were small changes that might have the potential to help a bit. And so I honestly, I want to know what we're going to do to fix it going forward, but I'd actually just like an update on what we've done over the last 2 years to understand that. Thank you.
All right, Councilor Babao would like to sign on and comment.
President, and thank you, Councilor Ewan Campen, for putting this up. I'm sure we all, some of us got emails from this, and I touched base with you about this. But this is like, I think the city actually needs to step up in terms of like just providing some form of insurance around this area, because the way I saw the email was kind of like, feels like the city is probably just said, okay, it's what it is, and leaving residents to kind of like deal with something like this to this scale. So I really appreciate that, you took the initiative to put this forward. Thank you, Mr. President.
All right, any further discussion? Seeing none, this item is laid on the table for approval.
And item number 20 is an order by Councilor Ewan Campen that the Director of Economic Development update this council on the recent request for proposals to lease the historic Union Square Fire Station to a private developer and provide this council with an independent assessment of the building and relocation efforts for the tenants.
Councilor Ewan Campen.
Thank you, Mr. President. So about 2 weeks ago, I was informed that the administration released a request for proposals to find a private developer to fix all of the various problems with the old fire station in Union Square, and then to lease it for 10 years for some arts and creative usage. And from my reading, it seems like the idea is that presumably the Union Square developer, US2, would foot the bill for the quite expensive fixes, and then by leasing it to them for 10 years for this sort of usage, that could help them satisfy some of their requirements to provide arts and creative economy usages for the Union Square redevelopment. My understanding is that although the RFP is put out by the administration, any deal like this would require the City Council's approval. That's how I understand it. So I just want to bring this to the council's attention for us to start having conversation about the idea now, so that all of us can be on the same page. and not be making any kind of decisions, under the gun time-wise. So I have not had enough time to do a lot of outreach to the public, to advocacy groups, to hear what people think about this. I will just say on a gut level, I have a lot of questions about the idea of giving up a beautiful historic public building in the heart of Union Square to a private developer, even if it is just for a 10-year lease. This is not to say that there is no context under which I think it could make sense, but I have a lot of questions and concerns about it. I'm also concerned that if this was used to offset some of the requirements, we could be losing out on the creation of new space for this. I'm concerned. I know that this council has discussed it in great detail about making sure that the current tenants are dealt with respectfully. I personally don't feel like I have a solid understanding of exactly what the work is that needs to be done and how close to catastrophic failure that building is. So I really would like to kind of see in writing the status of that building, so that we can kind of have all the information before us that we need to make this decision. I would ask that this go to Housing and Community Development, I think is the correct committee, so we can have a discussion on this.
Okay, Councilor Kling would like to sign on, and Councilor Davis has a comment.
Thank you, Mr. President. Yeah, just a question. I want to make sure I'm following to Councilor Ewan-Campen. So that, and I know this isn't, the administration issued the RFP, but as you understand it sounded like you were saying, so if whoever responds to the RFP, so let's say if it is the US2, they would, in exchange for fixing up the building, they would and the 10-year lease, they would or it would be held out for arts uses, and you're saying that could potentially also be sort of used to credit against the arts and creative uses that they're already obligated. So, I mean, that sounds kind of like maybe it would be a situation of sort of double dipping the same arts and creative uses for two different purposes. Am I understanding that correctly?
Mr. President, through you, I really don't want to get out ahead of my understanding on this. I'm sort of trying to put this together through reading the RFP and having conversations with economic development. I think it would probably, before I try to hazard a guess at that, we should discuss it in committee. I guess that's a concern I have.
Okay, fair enough. Me too. Thank you.
All right, seeing no further discussion, this item will be laid on the table for approval and referred to Housing and Community Development.
And item number 21 is an order by Councilor Ewan-Campen that the Director of Economic Development update this council on the updated Nexus study to increase development linkage fees.
Councilor Ewan-Campen.
Thank you, Mr. President. There is an enormous amount of large new commercial development coming to Somerville, and linkage fees are one of the prime ways that we recoup some of that value and redistribute it for housing, for affordable housing, and for jobs creation and retention. And this, at the time, Board of Aldermen, but before I was here, in their great wisdom, enacted the current system of linkage fees, which is $10 per square foot that goes to affordable housing, $2.46 that goes to jobs. And those values were established after what's called a nexus study. That is a required study that creates a rational nexus for the fees and a community process. And our zoning ordinance requires that every 5 years the planning board does a new nexus study. I spoke with the economic department last week and was told that they're issuing an RFP later in September, and they hope to sign a contract in November and start the study in December. So I'm thankful to them for being on this. And I put in this order because I want to make sure that we are prioritizing this study and not wasting any time updating our linkage fees to capture the current market reality.
All right, I see Council Ballantyne, Strezzo, and Davis and Barr would like to sign on. Any further discussion? You want this just approved, Councilor Ewan-Campen?
Yes, Mr. President.
All right, this item will be laid on the table for approval. Councilor Klingon will sign on. Oh, Councilor Niedergang has a comment.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. President. Just quickly, as I recall, the last time the Nexus study took a god-awful long time to complete. It just seemed to drag on and on and on. And as Councilor Ewan-Campen has said, I totally agree. This needs to be a top priority and speed. yeah, we need to get as much from developers as we possibly can for community needs, and this. Thank you.
So I'm still waiting on my Nexus study for highway pollution. So this item will be laid on the table for approval, and hopefully we'll get a fast answer. Next item.
Item number 22 is an order by Councilor Ewan-Campen that the Director of Health and Human Services report to this council the percentage per department of city employees who are vaccinated against COVID-19 and finalize plans to mandate such vaccinations.
Councilor Ewan-Campen.
Thank you, Mr. President. Myself and many others in Somerville and across the country have been calling for vaccine mandates for public employees for several weeks now. On July 30th, the administration put out a press release saying that they were looking into a possible vaccine mandate for staff, for school employees, and that they were seeking input from unions, as they absolutely should. Since then, the Somerville Teachers Union, the SCU, has come out in support of mandated vaccines for all educators. We're seeing more and more of these mandates being rolled out and being highly effective. Just this week, we learned that every member of the armed forces is going to be required to receive a vaccine. These are extraordinarily safe and extraordinarily effective. And as public employees, it's unambiguous that we have a responsibility to do everything that we can to minimize this disease. So I would ask that the administration finish up the looking into process and hopefully roll this out soon. Thank you.
All right, Councilor Ballantyne would like to sign on. Councilor Klingon, did you sign on for this or the last item? Last item. Okay, Councilor Bao, you have a comment?
Yes, Mr. President, thank you again to the Honorable Ewan-Campen for putting this forward. I think it's necessary. We should, like with a slight phrase about making sure that we don't unintentionally harm, like people that will, like could be exempted for like religious reasons and stuff like that. So have that in mind, just so we don't create any. Once they are crafting that, they should take that into consideration. Thank you.
All right, any further comment? Hearing none, this item is laid on the table for approval.
And item number 23 is an order by Councilor Ewan-Campen that the Director of Housing report to this council whether the stock of federally funded housing units is above or below the Faircloth limit, which caps the number of such units at 1999 levels.
Councilor Ewan-Campen.
Thank you, Mr. President. This is a simple request for information. I just like to know whether we are currently already at what is called the Faircloth limit, which caps the number of federally funded housing units in the city. Thank you. This does not need to go to committee. I just like a response in writing.
Okay. Councilor Ballantyne, Klingon would like to sign on, and Councilor Scott has a comment.
Yes, thank you. I really appreciate the council from Ward 3 bringing this up. I would just say that as of the most recent year's available data, what I saw was that Somerville is at the Faircloth Amendment cap. But one thing that I would really like to come out of this discussion is an understanding of how the Clarendon Hill project might impact that. As we're aware, those units will be demolished and replaced with a project that replaces unit for unit those affordable units, but they are shifting to a project-based voucher Section 8 approach to funding them. And I'm not sure if that would still leave them in our Faircloth Amendment limit or would somehow exempt them. So I would love to see that be part of the discussion with the Housing Department, just understanding how the Faircloth Amendment impacts the PHA in general and SHA in particular count of affordable units here. Thank you.
All right, see no further comment. This item is laid on the table for approval.
And item number 24 is an order by Councilor Niedergang and Councilor Davis that the Commissioner of Public Works, the Director of Purchasing, and the Director of Mobility report to the Legislative Matters Committee on enforcement of and annual reporting on the ordinance to safeguard vulnerable road users.
Councilor Niedergang.
Mr. President. I'd like this to legislative matters where this ordinance was crafted under the leadership of Councilor Davis. And just want to add that what this ordinance calls on everybody to know, it requires that large trucks owned by the city or contracted by the city be inspected and have specific safety items installed. Not clear whether this is has actually been doing this. I have not seen any of the annual reports that are required under the ordinance. Furthermore, apparently Boston and Cambridge are also looking at this or have enacted something, so our city should be coordinating closely with them on enforcement and for that to try to assure that we're all requiring the same things and that they are the most effective things possible. There may be some more work that needs to be done on this ordinance in addition to just trying that the administration is enforcing it. Thank you.
Councilor Ballantyne would like to sign on, and Councilor Davis has a comment.
Thank you, Mr. President. Yeah, just a quick add-on to the statement by Councilor Newdigang. Thank you for that statement and for putting this in for us. The original the existing ordinance was based on what Boston had done and what Cambridge was looking at the time. We're blessed with among the many brilliant people in this city with one of the nation's leading experts in this area who happens to live in Ward 6, Alex Epstein, and he helped draft this. I was a primary drafter along with myself initially, but what Councilor Newdigang is referring to is that Boston and Cambridge their ordinances have evolved a bit, and we'll want to take another look and just try and align with that because it makes it sort of speaking with one voice makes it easier to enforce these. So my intent will be to, following this conversation, to sort of see where we are, potentially introduce amendments based on those discussions and consultation with Alex, and try and update and modernize or make any improvements to the original ordinance, and hopefully to something that will be more readily followed by the city. I think I saw one of the required reports. If the others were submitted, then I must have missed them. But that's the intent on that front. So thank you.
All right. Seeing no further comment, this item's laid on the table for approval.
And item number 25 is an order by Councilor Newdigang and Councilor Davis that the Commissioner of Public Works and the Director of Mobility report to this council whether the video "Safer Trucking in Changing Cities" is being used to train city truck drivers in safe driving techniques.
All right. Councilor Ballantyne would like to sign on. Councilor Newdigang.
Thank you, Mr. President. This video was developed for training purposes of Somerville and Cambridge expert professional residents. This was after Evans was killed in Porter Square by a truck. He was riding his bicycle. And as far as I know, 2 Cambridge residents in the last few years riding their bicycles by trucks. Fortunately, nobody in Somerville yet, but just a matter of time. This video was used previously by our DPW to train drivers as by the cities of Boston and Cambridge, and I put the link. It doesn't show up on the agenda, but if you click on the item on the city website, you'll find the link to the video. It's 10 minutes. It's incredibly well done. It's very professionally done. I encourage everybody to take a quick look at it. It's really worth seeing, and it's a very effective video for training purposes. Alert truck drivers to the potential hazards not only of crashing with bicycle riders but also with pedestrians. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Any further discussion? Seeing none, this item will be laid on the table for approval.
And that brings us to item 26, an order by Councilor Scott that the Commissioner of Public Works install 5-minute pickup drop-off signs at 445 Somerville Avenue.
All right, this item's laid on the table for approval.
And item 27 is an order by Councilor Scott that the Commissioner of Public Works repair the damaged street sign at Hanson Street and Perpersey Way.
This item's laid on the table for approval.
And item 28 is an order by Councilor Scott that the Commissioner of Public Works replace the hawk signal at Buckingham and Beacon Streets with a standard RYG stoplight signal.
Councilor Scott.
Thank you, Mr. President. This is one that I don't know, third, fourth request on this. The intersection there has been insufficiently signaled and unsafe for quite some time. For years prior to the redo of Beacon Street reaching that point, there was a stoplight that was on site that was not properly hung, was hanging sideways. It didn't actually work very effectively. The hawk signal, in addition to people's concerns about its lack of effectiveness elsewhere in the city, this was the second place where a hawk signal was installed, and you know, residents, police details, many people have commented on its lack of efficacy. I do know there is a petition drive going right now. There's a great deal of agitation in the neighborhood about this, so I'd request that this go to traffic and parking, and I'll work with Councilor Niedergang to ensure that the residents of this neighborhood are able to get their voices heard on this issue, and we can hopefully have a frank policy discussion on it. Thank you.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, this item will be referred to, laid on the table for approval, referred to traffic and parking. And Councilor Niedergang also asked that item 25 go to traffic and parking as well.
Excellent. Got that for both of them. And then that brings us to item number 29, which is an order by Councilor Scott that this council consider an automated speed enforcement in school zones home rule petition, similar to the one already approved by Salem, Massachusetts.
Councilor Scott.
Thank you, Mr. President. So this one is actually something that was brought by a member of the community here in Ward 2. Salem passed this home rule petition in 2019, late 2019, to the State House. It did expire without action from the State House, but as we know, the more cities and towns ask for these things, the more likely they are to get some reading. I would ask that this be sent to committee, and you know, the only revision I might consider is a reading of it with relation to our surveillance oversight ordinance, and perhaps a line to indicate that it would be, of course, in full compliance with that ordinance. Thank you.
All right, I see Councilor Ballantyne, Davis, Baugh, Espresso would like to sign on. Any further discussion? Seeing none, this item will be laid on the table for approval and referred to legislative matters.
And item number 30 is an order by Councilor Scott that the Director of Planning ensure that a motion is placed on the next agendas of the Planning Board and Urban Design Commission to approve the minutes of prior meetings and ensure that those minutes are posted promptly.
Councilor Scott.
Thank you, Mr. President. This one's a little obscure, but there are a lot of people who love reading minutes here in Ward 2 and around the city. Unfortunately, while our temporary minutes tend to become available very quickly and our meetings are recorded, some of these other boards like UDC, like Planning Board, are not quite so easy to obtain. And if their minutes are not formally approved in a subsequent meeting, they are not posted by the city. This should be standard practice for every board, but it's particularly troublesome for these boards. So I would just ask the Director of Planning, direct staff to make sure that it goes on the agenda so that the public can see these meeting minutes in a timely fashion.
All right, any further discussion? Seeing no further discussion, this item is laid on the table for approval, and let's send a copy to the Director of Planning.
Thank you. And item 31 is an order by Councilor Scott that the Director of the Arts Council provide an update regarding the leases at the Armory Building and the plan for tenancy and uses moving forward.
All right, Councilor Niedergang requests to read item number 89 as well, which is related to this.
Excellent. Item number 89 is a communication of the mayor conveying a communication to Armory tenants regarding use and occupancy agreement and the city's plan for the Armory.
And Councilor Baugh would like to sign on to item 31. Councilor Scott.
Thank you, Mr. President. I have a lot of friends in the arts community. That's actually how I first came to Somerville and came to love Somerville. And there's a lot of stress, a lot of distress, and a lot of concern over something which should be an unequivocal win. for artists in Somerville and for the city of Somerville, and the Armory is a public good. So I appreciate that there is this letter that was released, I think, today for the city council and to the tenants over there. I would ask the clerk to please ensure that the copy that's attached in number 89 have the email addresses of the recipients redacted. That's personal information there. But that said, I think it would be worthwhile to also refer this to a committee so that there can be a conversation where the tenants feel like there's a public forum where discussions are not happening behind closed doors and everybody's on the same page. So thank you very much.
All right, Council Niedergang.
Thank you, Mr. President, and I really appreciate Councilor Scott bringing this order. Unfortunately, when the city delivered the use and occupancy agreements to the tenants, this email, which I think it explains well and provides a lot of background information that's important to them and to the arts community, this email was not sent until a week later. And as a result, there's been a great deal of anxiety, worry, concern, protesting about the issue, which was really unnecessary. So the city really needs to do a better job of communicating with the tenants and with the arts community, with the public, about what's going on at the Armory. I am delighted that this letter was sent explaining the process. There was new information in it. I just want to clarify one thing, which is that as far as I know, the two city staff who are in charge of the Armory and the whole process of deciding what will happen there are Tom Galligani, the Director of Economic Development, and George Proakis, the Director of the Office of Strategic Planning and Community Development. As far as I know, the Arts Council has not been involved in this since the city took the building by eminent domain. So I would just like to I'd like to make a motion to amend the order that it read that the Director of Economic Development provide an update, because Mr. Galligani is the direct contact to the tenants and the person who is directly responsible for liaison and management of the Armory at this time, and he and Mr. Proakis are working on developing the plan for its future. So I'd like to make that motion. Thank you.
All right, any discussion on the motion? You get all that, Madam Clerk?
I did indeed, and we'll do a roll call vote on that amendment.
All right, please call the roll.
Councilor Niedergang.
Yes.
Councilor White.
Yes.
Councilor Ballantyne.
Yes.
Councilor Ewan-Campen.
Yes.
Councilor Davis.
Yes.
Councilor Strezzo.
Yes.
Councilor Klingon. Councilor Klingon. Councilor Mba.
Yes.
Councilor Scott.
Yes.
Councilor Rossetti.
Yes.
Councilor McLaughlin.
Yes.
10 councilors are in favor, 1 is absent. That amendment is approved.
I'd like to have my vote counted. I'm sorry, I stepped away for a second.
Thank you, Councilor Klingon.
All right, so on the item before us now, any further discussion? Seeing none, this item will be laid on the table for approval, and let's refer to the Finance Committee.
And item 32 is an order by Councilor Scott that the Director of Engineering provide a timeline for the change of signaling at Webster Avenue and Washington Street to a pedestrian exclusive interval.
Councilor Scott.
Oh, thank you. Much like Buckingham, where my first order was in January 2018 on that one. This is a long-standing issue with an unsafe crossing at Webster and Washington, which has only become more urgent, seeing as how we're about to be sending all the children in Prospect Hill Academy and our Genziano schools back. I have had some discussion with engineering. There is a hopeful timeline of anywhere from September 15th to October 15th for work on this to begin, or consideration for this to begin. But a lot of that still has dependencies on when different paving sections of the project happens, and the Parsons Brinkerhoff, the consultant team, can conduct their analysis. I would love to see this sent to a committee so that at our first traffic and parking committee, when hopefully we'll have more information about the timeline on these dependencies, we can get an update on this. Thank you.
All right, any further discussion? Seeing none, any preference for committee, Councilor Scott?
Traffic and parking, please.
All right, this item will be laid on the table for approval and referred to traffic and parking.
And item number 33 is an order by Councilor Scott that the Director of Mobility and the Director of Engineering discuss the upcoming Mass DOT replacement of the Webster Street Rail Bridge and explain what public input process will be followed locally.
Councilor Scott.
Thank you, Mr. President. A little birdie told me that MassDOT was considering or was proceeding with replacement of the bridge over the railroad tracks on Webster Ave. That is a state-owned bridge. I don't think many people know that. And I was surprised to hear it, and also surprised the ward councilor wouldn't get a heads up on this from anybody if the city is aware of it. So I would just love that we could have this discussion, perhaps in traffic and parking, because I think that crossing is an important one. It's part of a very complicated set of intersections that aren't particularly very safe right now, and are solutions to try to make them safe, especially now that the boardwalk sidewalk's been closed off for a very long time and is just separated by temporary Jersey barriers. There's going to be a lot of public interest in this, and I think it's in the city's best interest to have an extensive public process around it. So I would just love to find out what the heck is going on with that bridge, sir, if we could send this to committee.
All right, seeing no further discussion, this item's laid on the table for approval and referred to traffic and parking.
And item number 34 is an order by Councilor Strezzo and Councilor Klingon that the Director of Engineering update the Flood Forum Committee on the mitigation and steps to address flooding for the Gilman Square region, most specifically on Richdale Avenue, School Street, and Medford Street.
Councilor Strezzo.
Thank you, Mr. President. Similar to the earlier order put forward by Councilor Ewan Campen, but if we can get some information sooner to constituents about some mitigation steps from the Director of Engineering, that would be super. And if the council can. Thank you, that's all.
All right, Councilor Ballantyne would like to sign on, and thank you, Councilor Strezzo, for reminding me that we have a Flood Forum Committee. This item will be laid on the table for approval and referred to the Flood Forum Committee. And Madam Clerk, I would also like to refer my previous item regarding the Washington Street Bridge to the Flood Forum Committee as well, instead of the committee I stated. Councilor Klingon and Councilor Ewan Campen wants to sign on, and Councilor Klingon would like to speak.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you to Councilor Strezzo, as well as Councilor Ewan Campen, and recognizing the frustration of our many constituents down there in Richdale and beyond Richdale, as Councilor Strezzo said, into the Marshall Street area, as well as over on Bradley. I mean, it's pretty bad over there, and I think what the people are asking for, I know that, you know, we have a plan down the road, which kind of coincides with new development in Gilman Square, and so I was just kind of, I was going to speak to this, but also say, you know, I have an order coming up shortly that addresses that, and saying that, you know, never mind short-term fixes. We need the long-term fix now. But I'll speak to that when it comes up. But essentially, this has gone on for a long time. We are not holding up our end of the bargain. There are people who are continuously pumping feces water out of their basements, and we have to move now. So I thank you to the councilors.
All right, this item's laid on the table for approval and referred it to the Flood Forum Committee.
And item 35 is an order by Councilor Strezzo and Councilor Ewan-Campen that the Director of Parking implement traffic calming measures on Montrose Street between School and Sycamore Streets, including but not limited to 2 caution children playing signs on opposite ends of the street.
Councilor Strezzo.
Thank you, Mr. President. Not much to report. It explains itself. I just ask it be sent to committee. Thank you.
All right, any further discussion? Seeing no, this item is laid on the table for approval and referred to the traffic committee.
And item number 36 is an order by Councilor Strezzo that the Director of the Council on Aging appear before this Council's Committee on Housing and Community Development to discuss an ongoing plan to bus seniors to citywide events, including evenings and weekends.
Councilor Strezzo.
Thank you, Mr. President. This has come up from some of our elder constituents that have requested the conversation because they would like to be able to attend weekend events like Summer Streets and other events throughout the city. And we do have the Council on Aging does have a grant program up to the end of the year that buses seniors to medical appointments and the grocery store. But here, can we explore the chance for seniors to be able to travel to art events as well? Because I've heard from some constituents that they feel left out of the process and can't easily get to other parts of the city for events. So let's explore it in committee. Thank you.
All right, any further discussion? Seeing none, this item is laid on the table for approval, and let's refer this to the Equity Committee.
And item 37 is an order by Councilor Klingon that the Director of Engineering work with the administration to fund a wastewater management project in the next fiscal budget for Gilman Square to address constant flooding.
I'm sorry, reading the last order, I failed to mention that this was specifically asked to go to housing. So let's refer that last one to the Housing Community Development Committee. And Councilor Klingon, you have the floor.
Yeah, just, I know it's getting a little repetitive, but I mean, the people down in Gilman Square are really desperate for some action. So I understand that there is plans to fund a plan, but I think that those plans need to be enacted sooner rather than later. So I don't know if this would go to like the Finance Committee or Public Utility, Public Works, but essentially, or no committee at all. I just really want to emphasize to the administration and to the engineering that they can't wait down there for whatever timeline it is that we're on. It's unfair, and it's just quick fixes aren't going to do it. And this is like a decades old problem. And I know we put a lot of eggs in the Union Square basket, but and that's kind of left a lot of people in the dump, legit, for real. So send that to whatever committee you feel appropriate.
We got a lot of flood items, so let's put it on the little used flood forum committee. We'll get some work in there. So this item's laid on the table for approval and referred to the flood forum committee.
And item 38 is a resolution by Councilor Klingon that the Director of the Somerville Housing Authority provide this Council's Committee on Housing and Community Development with an organizational chart for the SHA, including the current SHA commissioners.
All right, Councilor Klingon.
Thank you, Mr. President. This is more of a request. Obviously, we can't direct the Housing Authority to do anything, but what I maybe should have said that this is for the city's housing office to work with SHA to put together an org chart. This is about transparency. It's about kind of, understanding who sits on those boards. Those are all, appointed positions, and also who works, who are the employees down there. And it's just to get a better understanding on staffing and responses and ability to get things done for the tenants. So yeah, I'm happy to. I really want to dig in on that still. Sooner the better, thanks.
All right, seeing no further discussion, this item's laid on the table for approval with a copy sent to Housing and Community Development.
And that brings us to the matters of unfinished business. Mr. President, I do believe there was an item that you wanted to take out of order here.
Yes, indeed. Councilor Ewan Campbell would like to take item 63 out of order. Will you please read that item first?
Thank you. Item number 63 is a communication, the planning board conveying its recommendations on items, a number of items, all requests to amend the zoning ordinance.
All right, so we have at least 4 items here before us that were all previously approved by the City Council, and we just needed a report from the planning board to enroll and ordain these items. So if there's no discussion, we can take up the 4 items separately and do roll call votes for enrollment or endainment, and ordainment. Any discussion before I move to approve? Seeing no further discussion, Madam Clerk, please call the roll on the first item.
Yes, so this will be enrollment for item 211675, a zoning amendment for 471 Somerville Avenue. Councilor Niedergang.
Yes.
Councilor White.
Yes.
Councilor Valentine.
Yes.
Councilor Ewan Campen.
Yes.
Councilor Davis.
Yes.
Councilor Strezzo.
Yes.
Councilor Klingon.
Yes.
Councilor Mba.
Yes.
Councilor Scott.
Yes.
Councilor Rossetti.
Yes.
And Councilor McLaughlin.
Yes.
All committee members are in favor. That item is enrolled.
And on ordainment.
And on ordainment for item 211675, Councilor Niedergang.
Yes.
Councilor White.
Yes.
Councilor Valentine.
Yes.
Councilor Ewan Campen.
Yes.
Councilor Davis.
Yes.
Councilor Strezzo.
Yes.
Councilor Klingon.
Yes.
Councilor Mba.
Yes.
Councilor Scott.
Yes.
Councilor Rossetti.
Yes.
And Councilor McLaughlin.
Yes.
And all councilors are in favor. That item is ordained.
Next item.
Item number 40 is a communication proposing a zoning amendment to extend the small business overlay to the property at 92 Perperzi Way. So on enrolling item 211988, this zoning amendment, Councilor Niedergang.
Yes.
Councilor White.
Yes.
Councilor Valentine.
Yes.
Councilor Ewan Campen.
Yes.
Councilor Davis.
Yes.
Councilor Strezzo.
Yes.
Councilor Klingon.
Yes.
Councilor Mba.
Yes.
Councilor Scott.
Yes.
Councilor Rossetti.
Yes.
And Councilor McLaughlin.
Yes.
All councilors are in favor. That item is enrolled.
On ordainment.
On ordainment for item 211988, Councilor Niedergang.
Yes.
Councilor White.
Yes.
Councilor Valentine.
Yes.
Councilor Ewan Campen.
Yes.
Councilor Davis.
Yes.
Councilor Strezzo.
Yes.
Councilor Klingon.
Yes.
Councilor Mba.
Yes.
Councilor Scott.
Yes.
Councilor Rossetti.
Yes.
And Councilor McLaughlin.
Yes.
All councilors are in favor. That item is ordained.
Next item.
Item 41 is a proposed zoning amendment for the property at 8 to 8A Melvin Street. So on enrolling, item 212047, Councilor Niedergang.
Yes.
Councilor White.
Yes.
Councilor Valentine.
Yes.
Councilor Ewan Campen.
Yes.
Councilor Davis.
Yes.
Councilor Strezzo.
Yes.
Councilor Klingon.
Yes.
Councilor Mba.
Yes.
Councilor Scott.
Yes.
Councilor Rossetti.
Yes.
Councilor McLaughlin.
Yes.
All councilors are in favor. That item is enrolled.
On ordainment.
On ordainment for item 212047, Councilor Niedergang.
Yes.
Councilor White.
Yes.
Councilor Valentine.
Yes.
Counselor Ewan-Campen,
Yes.
Counselor Davis,
Yes.
Counselor Strezzo,
Yes.
Counselor Klingon,
Yes.
Counselor Mba,
Yes.
Counselor Scott,
Yes.
Counselor Rossetti,
Yes.
and Counselor McLaughlin.
Yes.
All counselors are in favor. That item is ordained.
All right, next item.
And we have item number 42, requesting an amendment to the zoning ordinance to revise the facade build-out dimensional standards. On and rolling, item 212051. Counselor Niedergang,
Yes.
Counselor White,
Yes.
Counselor Valentine,
Yes.
Counselor Ewan-Campen,
Yes.
Counselor Davis,
Yes.
Counselor Strezzo,
Yes.
Counselor Klingon,
Yes.
Counselor Mba,
Yes, please.
Counselor Scott,
Yes.
Counselor Rossetti,
Yes.
Counselor McLaughlin.
Yes.
All counselors are in favor. That item is enrolled.
All right, on ordainment.
On ordainment for item 212051. Counselor Niedergang,
Yes.
Counselor White,
Yes.
Counselor Valentine,
Yes.
Counselor Ewan-Campen,
Yes.
Counselor Davis,
Yes.
Counselor Strezzo,
Yes.
Counselor Klingon,
Yes.
Counselor Mba,
Yes.
Counselor Scott,
Yes.
Counselor Rossetti,
Yes.
and Counselor McLaughlin.
Yes.
All counselors are in favor. That item is ordained.
All right, next item.
That brings us to communications of the mayor. Item number 43, a request of the mayor requesting approval of a 30-year lease for the new Assembly Square Fire Station.
All right, this item, Council Scott.
Yeah, Mr. President, I'd request that we waive the readings of 43 through 49, accepting the items which have already been handled this evening, and refer those. Yeah, 40. Let's say it's 43 through 47, and send those to Finance Committee.
All right, Council Scott moves to waive the readings of 43 to 47, refer to Finance. Seeing no discussion, these items are referred to Finance.
And that brings us to item number 50, a request of the mayor requesting a transfer of $13,500 from the city council salaries monthly account to the city clerk's office salaries account to unify the city clerk's compensation into one account.
Councilor Scott.
Just some bookkeeping, move for approval this evening. Just
All right. Any discussion? Seeing none, this item's laid on the table for approval.
Mr. President,
And I
waive the reading for 51 through 54 and move for approval this evening. They're all prior year invoices in small amounts, less than $1,000.
Okay, lay on the table for approval.
Yes, sir.
Council Scott moves to waive the readings of the items and lay them on the table for approval. Seeing no discussion, these items are laid on the table for approval.
Okay, then that is going to bring us to item number 55, a request of the mayor requesting acceptance of and approval to expend a $250,000 grant with no new match required from the Mass Department of Housing and Community Development to the OSPCD Mobility Division for Gilman Square Streetscape Design Project.
Council Scott.
All right, thank you. I'd move for approval tonight, as well as the waiving the readings of 56 or 58, which are all grants with no new match required. And move for acceptance of 55 through 58.
All right, 55 is laid on the table for approval, and 56 to 58, you said?
Yes, sir.
All items laid on the table for approval. Please note that I am recused from item number 58.
Thank you.
Thank you. That is going to bring us to item number 61, a request of the mayor requesting the reappointment of Eleanor Rancis to the Housing Authority Board of Commissioners.
This item will refer to confirmation of appointments.
So item 62, a communication from the city solicitor requesting approval to pay FY21 outside legal counsel invoices with funds from FY21 and FY22.
Any discussion? Seeing none, this item will be referred to finance.
Mr. President, my apologies. I would request that we just approve this evening. We allocated additional funds in the FY22 budget for this purpose, so I just request they be approved this evening.
Okay, any further discussion? Seeing none, this item is laid on the table for approval.
And that will put us at item 64, the Memorialization Committee submitting a new street named Auto Workers Way in Assembly Row.
This item will be laid on the table and placed on file. Councilor White?
Thank you, Mr. President. I move to waive the readings of items 65 through 78 and then approve 65 through 75 with 676, 77, and 78 going to committee.
Okay, you're a little broken up there, Councilor White. Could you say again which items are going to committee?
Sure, let me try again. Waive the readings of 65 through 78 with 76, 77, and 78 going to committee, the remainder being approved tonight.
Okay, did you get that, Madam Clerk?
I did. We'll be laying items 65 through 75 on the table for approval, and items 76 through 78 will be referred to license and permits.
Excellent hearing. All right, seeing no discussion, these items are laid on the table. So refer to the license and permits, and the three items mentioned are moved for approval. Laid on the table for approval.
And item 79 is a public communication from AP Davis Square Plaza requesting the adoption of an amendment to the zoning ordinance map to rezone 4 parcels in Davis Square Plaza from MR4 to Civic and CC4.
This item's going to be referred to the Land Use Committee with a copy to the Planning Board.
Item number 80 is a public communication from Tufts University president responding to item 212222 regarding supporting the Tufts Labor Coalition and Tufts dining workers.
It's laid on the table and placed on file.
And that brings us to our supplemental items. Item number 81 is an order from Councilor Ballantyne that the Director of Health and Human Services provide metric-based, transparent information for small businesses and schools as we learn to live with COVID and follow emerging science.
Councilor Ballantyne.
Thank you, Mr. President. This is the second time that I have put this order in, and I've been working with Professor Danielle Latane, who is an infectious diseases expert, lives in our community, and is also works with the World Health Organization. And I have checked in with her since we've had the Delta variants cropping up over the summer, and there is still a request that we provide, or that the city provide, this kind of information for the public. Our current dashboard shows past cases of what has happened, but it doesn't project going forward what kind of metrics or goals or contingency plans that the city is using. And the hope of this plan is to allow parents and small businesses to be able to plan as you know they're watching things, you know, as the Delta variant is occurring in our communities. Thank you. So I would just ask that it goes to public health, public safety. Thank you.
Seeing no further discussion, this item is laid on the table for approval and referred to public health and safety.
And item number 82 is an order by Councilor Ballantyne that the Director of Health and Human Services discuss with this council what COVID Delta variant safety measures and mandates are being proposed, including mandating vaccinations.
All right, this item is laid on the table for approval. Councilor Ewan Campen would like to waive the readings of items number 83 to 87 and refer them to the Land Use Committee and copy sent to the Planning Board.
Excellent. So that brings us to item number 88, the request of the mayor requesting approval to appropriate $75,654 from the Capital Stabilization Fund for cloud email infrastructure to upgrade to a more advanced security profile.
Councilor Scott.
Thank you, Mr. President. Although we might quibble about the source of which funds, I'm not going to second guess Director Bean too much on this. My understanding is this is time sensitive. That they are waiting for this approval to issue an invoice and PO on this. Seems cheaper than ransomware to me. I move for approval this evening.
All right, Council Scott moves to approve. Seeing no discussion, this item is laid on the table for approval.
This item, Mr. President, will require a roll call vote.
Thank you. And I'll just add that if anybody got the spam email that was pretending to be me earlier, that's why this money is important. Roll call vote.
So this is a roll call vote on the motion to appropriate $75,654 from the Capital Stabilization Fund for cloud email infrastructure upgrades. Councilor Niedergang. I'm fairly certain that was a yes. Councilor Niedergang?
Yes, I think that was
Thank
a yes.
you.
Yes.
Thank you. Councilor White?
Yes.
Councilor Ballantyne?
Yes.
Councilor Ewan-Campen?
Yes.
Councilor Davis?
Yes.
Councilor Strezzo?
Yes.
Councilor Klingon?
Yes.
Councilor Mba?
Yes.
Councilor Scott?
Yes.
Councilor Rossetti?
Yes.
And Councilor McLaughlin?
Yes.
All councilors are in favor. That item is approved.
All right, next item.
That is the end of the agenda. We have already placed that last item on file, Mr. President.
All right, do we have any late items?
Oh, we do indeed. There is one late item that the council hereby welcomes William McLaughlin to Somerville, extends its best wishes to his proud parents, and looks forward to William's bright future in Somerville.
Oh, thank you very much, Councilor Ewan-Campen. This is just as good as my child being born. I can't wait to end this meeting and go watch him sleep, and hopefully he sleeps through the night. All right, Councilor Clinton would like to sign on. I'm sure the whole council wants to
Yes.
this lofty policy order resolution. Thank you very much, everyone. And I hope to one day introduce you all to William Yosemite McLaughlin. All right, seeing no further items before us, let's take all the items laid on the table and do a roll call vote.
Okay, so this will be a roll call vote to approve item number 3, items 7 through 11, 16 to 17, 19 to 38, 48 and 49, 50 through 60, 65 to 75, 81 and 82 and 88, and to place on file items 12 through 14, 63 to 64, 80 and 89. Councilor Niedergang.
Wow, our new clerk is just as amazing as, yes.
Thank you. Councilor White.
Yes.
Councilor Ballantyne.
Yes.
Councilor Ewan-Campen.
Yes.
Councilor Davis.
Yes.
Councilor Strezzo.
Yes.
Councilor Klingon.
Great job, Kim. Yes.
Councilor Mba.
Wonderful job, Claire Wells. Yes, please.
Councilor Scott.
Yes.
Councilor Rossetti.
Yes.
Councilor McLaughlin.
Yes.
All councilors are in favor. Those items are approved or placed on file as indicated.
All right, Councilor Barr moves to adjourn. Please call the roll on adjournment.
On adjournment, Councilor Niedergang.
Yes.
Councilor White.
Yes.
Councilor Ballantyne.
Yes.
Councilor Ewan-Campen.
Yes.
Councilor Davis.
Yes.
Councilor Strezzo.
Yes.
Councilor Klingon.
Yes.
Councilor Mba.
Yes, please.
Councilor Scott.
Yes.
Councilor Rossetti.
Yes.
And Councilor McLaughlin.
Yes.
With all councilors in favor, we are adjourned.
All right, good night, everybody. Good job.